So today we're going to make some bread, some fresh bread, and I got our mixing bowl, our sieve for the flour. So we're going to take a kilogram here of flour, and then what we're going to do is once we're ready is we're going to put it in the trusty air fryer, and that will be for the baking. So first thing we want to do is add some flour, kind of sift it as you go, make sure, just get rid of the bigger lumps, so you want it nice and fine. So that's what I'm doing here quickly. Doesn't take very long to do, it's quite quick. Alright. Here's the flour. Right, so there we have the flour done. Just going to tap the rest of that into our bowl here. It's a little bit of a messy process with the flour, but not too bad. Right, so that's the flour nicely into the bowl. Now what we need to do is add some of the ingredients. So we've got about 40 grams of sugar, 15 grams of salt, about 8 grams of yeast, so we just pop that in. Right, and then we'll start mixing up, and once we've added the water into the mix, then what we're going to do is add some oil, and once that's done we're going to let the flour start to do its thing. So I'm just mixing that in a bit, and really do need to get a bigger mixing spoon, but for now we'll just use this fork, and then we add the water. So the idea is to add the water gradually and just keep mixing as you go, and you'll immediately start to feel the texture change once it starts to get wet. So there's about 600 ml of water needed, and we're just adding that gradually, and you'll see texture changing. Might be easier if you have a machine. I don't have the luxury of a machine. Right, so that's starting to look good. Right, and a little bit more. So you'll see that it kind of passes a point where it really gets starts to bind together nicely, and that's what we've got to here. Right, and then the last of the water. Now I've gone as far as I can go with my spoon or my fork, so I think what we're going to do is just use our hands to get the last of this all mixed up. And you'll see it really starts to get that bread dough feel to it, and starts binding together really nicely. So that's what we have here now. As you can see, nice and sticky. Ideally though, if you have a machine, this is probably going to be a lot easier. So there we are. We're getting that really nicely mixed in, and you'll also notice that it actually sticks less as it gets more processed. So just making sure we get it all mixed in there. Right, so that's done. Now what we can do is add some of that oil. So we're going to add about 25 mils of oil. So just going to, right, let me get some of the oil going. So we'll just measure in some oil. Right, a bit of oil. Right, mix that in. And you want to make sure that everything is nicely mixed, because you don't want any dry bits in your bread. So it looks like you could do with a little bit of water, a little bit more water. So just adding that into the drier parts, so we can mix that up a bit, and then we'll mix it all in together. And we really just want to eliminate any dry bits of dough that might be there. It's very dry, doesn't feel right. Maybe I'm just going to mix more. If in doubt, consult the recipe again. So really trying to get this consistency right here. And also to remove these dry bits, which we've done. Right, so we just want to mix this in. Let's just have another consult of the recipe, make sure everything is right. Okay, so now what we need to do is just hammer away at our dough. So what I'm going to do is we're going to knead this a bit. So we just need to keep on going, and the purpose of the kneading is to release the gluten. So we're just going to keep kneading our mix. So now that yeah, our bread is starting to take a bit of shape here. In fact, it might be easier to knead it outside of the bowl. So I'm just removing the bowl there for a bit, and then on a flat surface, just to knead that. Yeah, much easier on the flatter surface. And let's see. Right, so that's starting to come together nicely. Right, so just make sure that the surface is clean before you go ahead and do this. So that's not a problem. This counter is cleaned continually. So yeah, that's starting to look right. So we just a lot of hard work here. Right, now once we've done with the kneading, we need to place it in a container and let it do its thing for about 1.5 hours. So we lightly oil the container so it doesn't stick. So what I'm going to do is wash that bowl, then we'll put it back in the bowl, cover it with a cloth, and then leave it to do its thing for about 1.5 hours, and then we'll come back and do some more prep before making our bread rolls. Right, see you in a bit. Right, so now we're ready to add it to the bowl to sit, let it just ferment for 1.5 hours. So we're just lightly oiling the bowl, the inside of the bowl where we're going to put the dough, and that's just to make sure that it doesn't stick to the side. So we're just doing a light oil. Right, so we just lightly oil that. Now we're going to add the dough. Right, so the dough has been added. We're just going to push that down to compress. Right, now we're going to leave that to ferment, and that will now rise. So I'm going to take a cloth and just cover that. Right, so we're going to leave that, and we'll be back in 1.5 hours. Right, so we're just going to follow up on the bread. We've left it for about 1.5 hours, and we just want to see how that's looking. So you can see the dough risen very nicely, in fact, and yeah, it's coming on really nicely. So almost ready to proceed with the next step, and see you in a bit. Right, so what we're going to do now is just punch it down, and then we're going to let it ferment for another half an hour or so. So just going to get some of that air out. So we just push it down, and you can see you can't push down to the original position. We're just getting some of the air out. There we go. Push down. Okay, and with that pushed down, we cover and we let that sit for another half an hour or so, and then we'll come back and we can start working with the dough again. Right, so we've let the dough set for a while, and what we can do now is start looking at the cooking. So you can see our dough is looking good. It's risen really nicely, feels really good. And what we're going to do is we're going to make some bread rolls, and then we're going to make some bread. So it's going to be a mix of stuff. And to do that, we do need to preheat. So we're going to preheat to 200 degrees, and I'm going to let that run for 5 minutes. We'll start that up, and then we'll just start getting everything ready to put in the oven. So I'm taking this non-stick base, which comes with a kit for the air fryer. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grease that, and then once that's greased, we can put some bread rolls down and we can put them in the air fryer. just getting a knife. Right, so here we have some butter. Just going to take a piece of butter and we're just going to lightly grease the tray. That'll just help it not to stick. If you have something else to use, you can. I'm just lining it with a bit of butter here. Right, so lightly greased there. So that's looking good. Just wipe my hands. Right, now we're going to start putting some little pockets of dough together here. So just and what we'll do is we're just going to roll it and then position it around. We're not going to leave them too close together because we know that as they rise they will expand and touch. So I think what I'm going to do is do around the edge. I'll do a small one in the middle and then I'll do another two slightly larger around the side. So do one there. And I think we'll do one more. Right, so there we have some bread rolls that we're going to do. Let's do that a little bit smaller, and they'll probably grow into each other as they warm up, and then we'll have this nice cluster of bread rolls. Right, so we're just waiting for the preheat to complete and then we're ready to put that in the air fryer. Right, so the preheat done and we're ready to roll. So here we have our rolled bread rolls ready to go. We're just gonna pop that in. So we have our tray in the bottom and we're gonna slide that in and then we're gonna let that go at 200 degrees and we need to let this one go for quite a while, so we're actually going to push up the time to 30 minutes and that'll be great for that bread. Then what I'm going to do is I have another dish here and I'm going to make another set of bread in here. So once again just get some butter out and we're just going to grease the inside of the container. So we just lightly grease that with the butter around the edges there. Right, so that's just about done. Right, so yeah, I think we've covered the greasing side of it, and yeah, now we're ready to proceed. So just clean my hands. Right, now we're going to just put our next batch in here. So in this one we're going to go a little bit bigger, of course, and I'm just going to go for like a loaf, so it'll be a round loaf. Nice and flat. Right. fact, I'm tempted to put the balance of the dough in here. I'm just concerned that when it rises that it will touch the element inside the air fryer. That's about as high as it can rise, and I'm wondering if I don't have just a little bit too much here. So let's have what I can see. I think that's about as much as we're going to do here on this one. Not quite sure if we can trust the dough not to rise higher than that. So we're going to leave that like that for now. We'll come back, and then what we'll do is we'll let this cook, and when this is done we will let the rest of the bread, we'll take those bread rolls out and we'll do some more bread rolls with this. So I'm just going to roll these into little balls for now and just leave that in the base and let that continue doing what bread does. So we'll close that up, and I'm just going to cover that up. Right, and then I'll see you in about half an hour. So we've been going for about 10 minutes, and I thought maybe what we would do is just take out one of the bread rolls and give it a test and see. First time we're making bread. So I'm going to open up and remove, very hot, let that carry on. And then what we'll do is we're just going to open this up and we'll just see what that looks like. So I'm just going to hold that with the side. Very, very, very crunchy. Wow, and look at that. So still a little bit to go, but really looking nice. Excellent. Excellent. So yeah, I don't think it needs to go a full 30 minutes. I think about 15 minutes should be enough. So we'll check in again in 15, in 5. So what I thought I'd do, we cut this open to see what it looked like. I've just added some butter, and I thought we'd just pop that back in and let that cook a bit. Right, so I think we're going to give that, at the moment we're on 17 minutes, we're going to give that another 5, and then we'll take another one out. So the bread's been going for about 16 minutes, the bread rolls, so we're just going to pull them out, see what we got. So I'm going to take out the one that was already a little bit crispy, that we had opened up, and we're just going to give that another slice. So not quite ready. So I think we need to go for, I think we're aiming at a 20-minute cook for bread. So another 5 or 6 minutes and we'll be ready to have another look. Right, so we're going for about 20 minutes now. And I think our bread rolls are ready. Not light and fluffy, mind you. Seem to have a bit more substance. So we need to remove those. They are quite warm, so I think I'm going to take this towel and just remove them. Yeah, they're definitely done. Right, so what we're then going to do is remove the inner tray. It's about the easiest way to do that. And then what I'm going to do is pop the second tray in with the bread. It's risen slightly, in fact risen quite a bit, and we're going to put that in. And being a much larger area to cook, let's push that up. Going to run that for 20 minutes, and when it's done we might then adjust that to a little bit longer. What I'm going to do now is just open up one of these bread rolls here and and just have a closer look. So let's just separate that one, and I'll open up this one. So nice and crispy, crunchy on the outside. Oh wow. And really nice and soft on the inside, and yep, could have cooked for a little bit longer. So it looks like with bread you've actually got to do the full 30 minutes in the oven. I cut it a bit shorter, but I think we would need to do those a little bit longer again. In the meantime, we've got the bread going, so we're going to let that finish. So based on what came back with these rolls, the 200 degrees might be a little bit too much because we need to leave it in for a while. So I'm going to drop that down to 180 for the rest of the cook. Right, so the bread's been going for 20 minutes, and I thought we'd open it up. And as you can see, wow, that is looking really good. So I just want to check and see how cooked it is. So wow, it's very crispy on top and needs to go a little bit longer. So I'm going to pop that back in, and we're just going to let it go. Well, technically another 10 minutes. Maybe we'll do that. And the crust is really crispy, so I think I'm going to just drop the temperature down to about 170 for the last cooking session. Right, so the bread is done, and we can have a look and see what we got. So you'll see that it's looking really nicely cooked. So I'm really happy with the way that looks. And what we're going to do is take that out, and I think we'll put it on that stand so that it can breathe. So now to get it out, and then what we're going to do is pop in the rest of the bread rolls. So let's do this. Let's get this out. And yeah, the bread is nice and loose, and then I'm just going to turn that over and pop the bread out. So oops. Okay, so that kind of missed a bit. Alright, now we have the top nicely done. It'll be interesting now to see what's happening here at the bottom. So that feels really doughy, and I'm wondering if the bottom is actually cooked. So just going to take this knife and punch it in the bottom here, and it a little bit sticky, So what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to put it back into cook for a little bit longer, but in this way. So let's see, bring this over. Probably not the right way to cook bread, upside down. I'm going to drop that in, and then take that out. Going to pop that in, and we're just going to cook it a little bit longer there. And in this case, I'm going to go leave it on 180 and let it go for 5 minutes. Right, and in 5 minutes time that should be done, and then we can also have a look at doing those bread rolls. Right, so we've been going for a good couple more minutes there, 5 minutes. And now you'll see that the base now has that lovely golden brown color. And if we check, yeah, it's still appears a bit doughy. So So either our dough consistency is too thick or not enough heat being generated. So I don't really want to cut it if it's not perfect. So I'm going to do another 5 minutes at the 180. And then we'll be done. So the bread has finished cooking now for another 5 minutes. And I'm pretty sure that that is now done. So we're going to take that out. Let's put that back. And then we'll just turn that over. Right. Lift that up. And there we have a very nice looking bread loaf. Right, that looks great. The next thing that I'm going to do now is let that cool down. It's a little bit too warm, so that needs to cool down, but that looks fantastic. Nice and crispy on the outside, and I know it's going to be soft on the inside. And then we have these bread rolls here that have been baking away for a while, so I'm just going to pop those in. And then we're going to do these bread rolls. So maybe what we can do is something different with them. So let's do that. I'm just going to put this back in the container, and then maybe what we'll do here is roll these. Make this one also a bit rolled. We roll this one, and we'll roll that one. Now it's not too long, so roll this a little bit longer. Not sure how this will turn out, and then what we'll do is we'll just kind of plait them, or maybe just leave it something like that, something different. Pop that in, and let's see how that does. Right, so let's push up the temperature now that it's empty, and we're going to run it for 15 minutes, and that should do it.